Hello and welcome to the SRAM Send It Series. This is race 3 in the 8-race series. I'm Matthew Keenan, and this week I'm joined by a woman who's best known for her work in the supercars, Rhianna Crean. Rhianna, welcome to the Send It Series. We've worked together on the National Road Series. Before we get into this event, how are your legs? You had a big morning up at the Zwift.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. It's great to be back here and great to be here for tonight's round 3 of the Send It Series. Yes, I'm a little bit tired. I had a big morning on Zwift, went up out to Zwift. Don't ask me why. I'm not sure if I'll be back there again anytime soon. But yeah, it was great to be on there. Great to experience some climbing before we get to a little bit of climbing tonight with the ladies around Innsbruck.
There is a bit of climb. It's the Innsbruckring tonight. It's 2 laps. It's 18 kilometres. It's not quite as difficult as the course that was used at the World Championships a couple of years ago, where Anna van der Breggen took out the win. But there's a tough climb that is with roughly 4 kilometres to go, and strategically, that will be really important. So let's now take a look at some of the riders to watch, the ones that we think could be the factors to try and win the race tonight. And let's start at the top with last week's winner, and she was brilliant, Rhianna. The Dutch woman, she took out the win solo, Antoinette de Jong. She's going to be difficult to beat again this time around.
Yeah, she's super impressive. Given her background isn't cycling, she is a speed skater. She's been to the Winter Olympics. Her credentials are exceptional. So to be here winning on Zwift, to me, is just incredible. Of course, we've got Taryn Heather, Laura Luxford, Kath Mackay and Brie Vine, who we've seen her feature really well in both races so far. She's currently leading the standings of the SRAM Send It Series. So I think that those girls will certainly be the ones to watch tonight.
Brie's been so consistent. She leads the series overall. She leads by 9 points. She's had 2 second places. So, yeah, she's been consistent. Taryn Heather is a really strong time trialist. She's represented Australia at the World Championships. Laura Luxford, a triathlete who's competing really well on the Zwift platform, particularly in this series. Unfortunately, I've just had information come through that Kath Mackay, she won't be racing. She's done now 166 races on Zwift, but she's got a heavy program. She's racing tomorrow morning, 3 a.m. local time for her in a Pro-Am series. So understandably, she needs to get some sleep. But outside of those 4, given that Kath is now out of contention with that early start tomorrow for her, there's a few key riders to watch, and you've got one that you've identified who could be tough to beat on this course.
Yeah, look, we've been chatting about some of the girls that we think are going to feature heavily tonight, and I think one of those is Justine Barrow. She hasn't really featured in the standings in the first 2 races that we've had so far, but she loves climbing. That's where she really shows her strengths. And I think that tonight she's certainly going to be one to watch, one that the girls are going to have to chase down. And I think that tonight's a track that's certainly going to suit her style.
Everybody talks about power to weight, and it's so important on this platform. She weighs 49 kilos. She loves a climb. It's a genuine 49 kilos.
Yeah.
So given that, and what's available for the riders to be able to use on this course, we saw last week there weren't a lot of the power-ups that were used. It was just raw power at the front by de Jong going solo. They've got the power-up options. Take us through them, and there's a couple of clear advantages on the course today.
Yeah, of course, we've got all the power-ups available, but I really think that there's going to be 2 that we see tonight, and they, of course, are the aero and the lightweight. The aero is probably one that a lot of the girls will save towards the end if they really want to take that sprint, take that breakaway. I've been told if you do get an aero towards the end, there's no way anyone's going to get past you. So mark words of some others that if you do have an aero towards the end, you are guaranteed to win this race. The other one that's going to feature quite a lot tonight will be that lightweight. That's really going to help you on those climbs. They're short, punchy climbs. The lightweight is going to be something that you want to hang on to and really use wisely on those climbs tonight.
There's also the drafting, the breakaway, which is known as the burrito, and the invisibility. That could be useful with the climb at 4 or so kilometres to go on this course. And that could be the moment where somebody tries to sneak away and then see if they can hold on through towards the finish. We've got almost 200 riders on the start line. This is the biggest entry that we've had in the SRAM Send It Series. Let's get down to the pens as they're just on 10 seconds before they get underway. You can see that we're heavily featured here on Brie Vine. She is the leader of the series. It's Nicole Frayne who is in second position, Third place is Jen Arnold, who is equal on points with Antoinette de Jong, and they're underway in race number 3 for the SRAM Send It Series. And Rihanna, the start is so important to try and fight for that position up at the front. We're going to see some high wattage output at this point.
Yeah, we've always spoken about just how important it is to get in there early. Some of the girls would have been in there for probably half an hour longer, 45 minutes, getting themselves warmed up, getting the blood rushing through the legs, getting that heart rate really high, and making sure they're in a great position to get themselves right towards the front of this pack.
And we can see already as we're on board with Brevine, she's punching out 300 plus watts. Heart rate is building up. It's at 167 beats per minute. Cadence is nice and high. It's up towards the 100 mark. And when I talk to some of the elite athletes of the sport who are now retired and brilliant coaches, in particular Greg Henderson, who we'll see racing later on in the men's event, he always talks about staying on top of the cadence. Don't get bogged down on the gear. And that's exactly what Brevine is doing. Did you get bogged down on the gear today on Help to Zwift?
I just got bogged down in general, to be honest. The whole thing, I was bogged down. But look, you know, it's just about a challenge and challenging myself, and it's just you and your avatar out there. And I think that's what, you know, we do focus a lot on the girls up the front here, but we have to remember that the SRAM Send It Series is open to everyone. That's why we've got so many riders racing here tonight and racing through the entire series. And so this is a really cool event that you can just be a regular Zwifter like myself and be taking part in these events.
We've got a bit of a legend of Australian cycling actually participating in this, a track sprinter, Michelle Ferris. She was a medalist at the World Championships and at the Olympic Games on the velodrome. She was a Commonwealth Games star as well. It was 2 years ago she was inducted into the Cycling Australia Hall of Fame, and she's been doing a fair bit of training on Zwift. And on the weekend, she was part of a group that did an Everesting performance on Zwift. So to go from doing 500 metres around the velodrome in the 500-metre time trial and doing sprint match racing, 3 laps around the velodrome, to then doing an Everesting effort, which is in the vicinity of 10 to 11 hours, that is a massive step.
I don't even want to think about those kinds of, outputs and the kind of effort that you've got to go to, but you've just got to, these girls, they're incredible. The amount of time that they're putting into their training and the workload that they have for themselves. And a lot of them, they're not just cyclists, they're professionals in other avenues as well, be that in, we've got doctors out there, we've got physiotherapists, there's so many other things as well. So it is incredibly impressive, the kind of work that these girls do and just how fit and how athletic they are.
You've just mentioned a doctor, and we do have the doctor, Alana Forster, sitting up towards the front. She's in 3rd position. She made the front split last week. She finished in 5th position in last week's race, and this is a format that suits her because she's relatively new to the sport. She's only been racing for about 2 years. And as you know, when you don't have a lot of experience, it can be a little nerve-wracking racing within a peloton. And to be fair, even with a lot of experience, it can still be nerve-wracking racing within a peloton.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and she's certainly holding her own. She's right up the top at the moment. She's sitting there. She's actually sitting in 1st position at the moment, but she's sitting there in the top bunch. I mean, just to balance what she does in her professional career with cycling, as you said, she's relatively new to professional cycling. It's just a credit to her and what she's doing, and to be able to hold her own with these girls and knowing that they've been involved in the sport from early ages is pretty special.
And as I pointed out last week, what we've discovered throughout the coronavirus period is who's an essential worker and who's not. And she's a doctor. She's an essential worker.
Absolutely. They definitely need her at the moment, but she's obviously keeping up with her training and her fitness, and obviously we're seeing her here tonight on Zwift.
Antoinette de Jong is up towards the front. What a story that was. Last week, her winning solo, and I got a message, mind you, from Wes Salzberger from Zwift, who himself has been a medalist at the World Championships. He sent me a quick message. She's a former Olympic medalist. So as we were commentating, I was quickly onto Wikipedia and I thought, I don't know her. She hasn't won Olympic Games gold medal, not at the Summer Olympics, a bronze medalist in 2018 at the Winter Olympics. She's got some horsepower.
Yeah, she is an incredibly impressive athlete. I was doing some reading on her today. She's only a young girl. She's only 24 years of age. She's actually a dual medalist. She's won 2 medals at the Olympics in speed skating. And I think for someone who can cross over into different sports on such an elite level is just incredibly impressive. We're just looking at her now. She's sitting around that 240 watts at the moment. She's just punched it up to 325. It's just incredibly impressive. An all-round athlete, and to be able to change over from one sport to another just so seamlessly. Yeah, really, really cool.
The best example that we've seen making the transition from ice skating across to cycling was the great American Eric Heiden, who won a swag of Olympic Games gold medals at the Winter Olympics in 1980. He then went on to ride the Tour de France a couple of times as part of the 7-Eleven team, and he's now a doctor, having graduated from Stanford Medical School. Talk about a show-off.
I think that's just being an overachiever, to be honest.
Phenomenal.
But yeah, that's amazing effort, and those kinds of people who are able to transfer their knowledge and their perseverance is pretty impressive.
I mean, any one of those achievements on their own is a huge achievement. And he's done 3. Olympic gold medalist at the Winter Olympics, ridden the Tour de France, doctor. Phenomenal. We're on board now with Taryn Heather. She's one of the more experienced riders in the race. She looks pretty comfortable, heart rate around about 160. She's got some room to go quicker than this.
Yeah, the pack's, is remaining pretty tight at the moment, remaining pretty steady. They're all just feeling each other out at the moment, seeing how everyone's riding, seeing what everyone's got for themselves. We're just about to hit over 5 kilometres into this race. It is, as we've said, a pretty short, sharp race, 2 laps on the Innsbruck circuit, just over 17 kilometres in distance. So we'll just be seeing how these girls punch out before we start really hitting into that climb that we've spoken about.
I've got some good news for you. I've just spotted, towards the front, Justine Barrow.
Yes, who we've spoken about earlier at the top of the show. We've sort of highlighted her as one of the favourites for tonight's race. We've spoken about how she does enjoy climbing. That's where she thrives. I have tipped her as one of the favourites for tonight. And as I was doing some reading on Justine, she's a full-time physiotherapist in her day job, if you like to say that. And I was reading a quote that someone has written about her, and I'm not sure if it's a compliment to her or not, but they said that she was the oldest rider to take a podium in a national championships road race. And I don't know if you want to be that person or not, but for her, I suppose it is a good thing.
I think it's a compliment. It's better than not getting a medal at the national championship. I think it's fantastic.
That's it. And I think we've just started this climb for us.
Yeah, 5 kilometres covered in 7 minutes. That is phenomenal. This is Laura Luxford. She got a mention early on. Look at the heart rate, 197 beats per minute. This is a serious effort.
Yeah, these girls starting to push hard now. They just had that little part of the climb, 8% as they just start to roll into that downhill, and then as we go back up. So yeah, just as you said, 200 beats per minute, really pushing hard, these girls.
They're absolutely flying. And we've got a serious split at the front here. Bree Wilson from the Rock Salt Attacker team is at the front. Nicole Frayne as well. She's been a regular. She's just at around about 4 seconds, so she's leading the chase. And here she is, Miss Consistent, Bree Vine at the front of the race. That's good to see, the leader of the series.
Yeah, we've seen Bree. She was second in second in both races so far, but as you said, she is leading the series. They come as a pair, her and her husband. We've been fortunate enough to have an in-home camera for a couple of the races with those guys, and it's really cool to be able to see that and just see how they travel. And she has been incredibly consistent throughout the course of these races.
This is the leading group of 3. Bree Wilson, it is, who's on the front. Zhang Cindy is there as well. She's a rider from China who's competing in this race, which is fantastic to see. They're coming down towards about to be caught by the next group, and Bree Vine, who we've mentioned, the leader of the series overall. They've got just a 2-second advantage, so they're pretty close to being caught by a solid chasing group. And amongst them is Alana Forster, the doctor who we spoke about, who performed really well last week. That's good to see.
Yeah, so there's just starting to break through the pack a little bit now. It was just heading into about 7 kilometers of this race. They've just over 9 minutes ticked over on the clock. So these girls are pushing hard. They're just riding at about 44 kilometers per hour, pushing out about that 250 watts at the moment. But these girls, they're really starting to put the pedal down at the moment. And as you can see, the pack is just starting to move around a little bit. These girls are starting to put some pressure on it, those girls at the front.
And the name just popping up on the screen, she's in 6th position right now. That's Lisa Jacob. She was super aggressive in race 1. I had big hopes for her in race 2, but unfortunately, she had a mechanical problem. And whether it's out on the road or on this platform, a mechanical problem is still a problem. And it was for her last week.
Yeah, unfortunately on Zwift, you get mechanical problems and then you get tech problems as well. So we've all experienced our tech problems, and most of those relate to internet issues, which is unfortunate. And those things they just can't be helped.
We've got Laura Luxford has made it into this group. She's a professional triathlete. Her sister, Annabelle Luxford, who's also an elite world-class triathlete, she's in the race as well. You've done a fair few triathlons yourself, and this was meant to be the year of the Ironman for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, unfortunately, like for everybody, plans have been put on hold or postponed or cancelled. So I've done a couple of 70.3 triathlons. I'm very much a triathlete. I try my best, but I'm not sure if I can call myself a triathlete. And yeah, this was the year of the Ironman, but unfortunately, we've had to put that on the back burner for now, and we'll see what happens when things start to normalise a little bit.
You emphasise the word try in the phrase of triathlete.
Yeah, that's correct. I like to participate. I'm not sure if I'll ever be fortunate enough to be up the front anywhere, but you just never know. The thing I like about Zwift is though, if I ride at certain times, I can get podiums.
Yeah, I need to pick my race to be able to do that.
That's it.
We're on board with Reznikov now. She's from Israel, so we've got Australia, Israel, and China represented in the front group. That's one of the great things about this format, is you can have people racing from all over the globe. And the leading group about to make their way through the finish line for the first time, so they get a chance to take a look at it. 10 kilometres remaining, or just a little bit less than that. The leading group is Reznikov, it is, who's still setting the tempo at the head of affairs. She's sitting at a heart rate of around about 164 beats per minute. I don't know what her max is. Heart rate. She's surely got to have a max a fair bit higher than that.
Yeah, you would think so. And I mean, these girls, we've just come onto the second lap of this race, and you've got to think that they're going to reserve a little bit for that second climb, which we know is only short, but obviously it is punchy, and they want to reserve a little bit. And then, of course, for that pursuit towards the end. So, you think that they're just going to be trying to conserve just a little bit while we're, on a relatively flat part of the course, and then really save some energy towards that end part just to really sprint to the finish.
Taking a look at the Zwift power platform, there's 11 riders in that leading group. Nicole Frayne is amongst them. Lisa Jacob is there. Laura Luxford. Brie Vine, the leader of the series. Last week's winner, Antoinette de Jong, who so far, she's been really quiet. She's been strategically very smart. Some people are under the misconceived perception that there are no tactics on Zwift. It's whoever has the most horsepower. But that's not the case. We've seen in this series, the winner of each round is not necessarily the person who produced the most power. De Jong proved that not to be the case last week, though. She did produce the...
Yeah. That's right, and we know that they are going to save something up for that climb. They've got their power-ups, which we haven't really spoken about so much throughout this race. Some girls might reserve that aero power-up for the very end, take one last sprint towards the finish, and if they do have that aero power-up, it's really going to give them an advantage. You are more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. So if you've got something towards the end, just conserve and then use that aero power up towards the very finish. So we might see some girls take that advantage.
Laura Luxford spending a fair bit of time on the front. And that's one thing that triathletes cannot be criticised for, is their workload. Whenever you ride a road race and a triathlete is in there, you can almost be always guaranteed that they'll do their fair share of work. And that's exactly what Laura Luxford is doing in this select group of 11 off the front. Just as I say that, she slips to the back of the group. It's the commentator's curse.
Yeah, it's always the way. We've got Nicole Frayne out there as well. We haven't really spoken too much about her tonight. She's sitting nicely in the bunch as well. She's come from a triathlon background as well. A couple of years ago, she had a few injuries that prevented her from continuing with triathlon, and then she switched over to cycling. Unfortunately, she had a few injuries at the start of this year, which has sort of given her a bit of a setback, but it's great to see her back on the bike and back out there tonight. She's sitting really comfortably within that lead group, and 172 beats per minute at the moment. So I assume, she's probably got a little bit more in the tank as well.
Yeah, she's a real powerhouse. She's second in the series. She sits on 27 points, so that puts her at 9 points behind the series leader, which is Bree Vine. If you win the race, you get 25 points. Second place is 18 points, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 1. The top 10 getting points. But importantly, in this series, you can get the big prize without winning the race, because anybody who competes in all 8 of the races goes in with a chance to win one of 2 SRAM Force E-Tap Axis disc group sets and a pair of the new Zip 303 S wheel sets. Nicole Frayne still at the front.
Yeah, pretty impressive prizes up for grabs, and really all you need to do is compete. So you don't even need to be winning to be in the running for those prizes. So very cool on offer there by Zwift.
And the breakaway has been reeled back in. There's a huge group that has come back into contention. The front group has swollen from some 11 riders. It's now consisting of 39 riders. And there's one of the youngsters, Tess White, who's sitting at just some 5 seconds behind them, but she's on her own trying to chase. She's one of the youngest riders in this event from the South Australian Institute of Sport. Whether you're on Zwift or out on the road, Rihanna, if you're on your own, you're on your own, and it's lonely.
Yeah, and that is a big pack to try and chase down. And she's a young, impressive rider. She's only, I think, 17 years of age. She's still at school, but she comes from a super impressive cycling background. Her brother, I believe, is in coaching at the moment. And she is a young star on the rise, and I'm sure we'll see plenty more of her as she matures and as she features a lot more in cycling in the future.
And speaking of stars of the future, we see Nicole Frayne up towards the front. We're down to just 4.7 kilometres to go. This has been happening so quickly. They're about to hit the climb once again. I think we're going to see some of the power-ups come to the fore, and Alana Forster is moving herself up towards the front. Can the good doctor get the job done today?
Yeah, we're just starting to see things move around a little bit as we just feature on Chelsea Holmes from the US of A at the moment, 197 beats per minute. So she's really starting to put the power down as this bunch really starts to swell. It's pretty impressive how many girls have really been able to join this front pack as we just start to hit this last part of the race, punching out 285 watts at the moment by Chelsea. So we're going to really see those girls who enjoy the climb start to come to the front and see what they've got for this last part of the race.
199. She's almost at 200 beats per minute. I feel like we need to round it up. The counting terms, they've done it. There it is, 200. Ouch. You can see the power-ups now coming to the fore. Look at the numbers. Bree Vine is on the charge. She is attacking at more than 8 watts per kilo. This is a big move, and Holmes is trying to respond.
Yeah, Bree Vine, she's going for it. We know that we're coming down to the last 4 kilometres of this race. These girls are really going to be pushing strong. Antoinette de Jong, she's just hit the front of the pack. So will she have a breakaway like she did last week?
Well, it won't come as a surprise to anybody. They'll be watching her avatar very closely, looking to see that move. De Jong at the front. Vine right there with it. So too Bree Wilson. So the pre-race favourites emerging at the front. Zhang Cindy, the rider from China, who launched one of the first moves on lap 1. She's managed to stick with them. And this race, the legs have been decimated. That has hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't seen Justine Barrow, though. She's not at the front pack like we expected. We'll see if she comes towards the front like we had said at the start of this race, but we haven't seen her move like we thought we would.
She's sitting in 16th position at the moment, so she's a little off the pace. That's not a good spot to be because this is a strong group once again that's at the front. This is Bree Vine, and that pain in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, Rihanna, that is real for Bree Vine.
Yeah, absolutely. As we go on board now and see that at-home camera of Bree, and then her husband's sitting alongside her warming up for his race, not too far away. The men's get going after the ladies finish, but she is really starting to put the power down now. She's working hard. She knows this race is nearly finished, just under 3 kilometres left to go, and she's pushing out just under 300 watts, and that is massive numbers for Bree Vine.
And on the way down the hill too, huge power, 51 kilometres per hour. She used one of the power-ups there, the aero or the drafting power-up, to try and make the most of the run off that climb. Taryn Heather is here now towards the front. This is a woman of real experience and a strong time trialist. This is a select group out in front, and the Dutch woman is there once again, De Jong. So too Nicole Frayne. This is anyone's guess. This is wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. These girls are working really hard now. They know the end is in sight. It is just all out sprinting to the finish. Just over 2 kilometres left in this race. Let's see who's got the legs to finish it off.
6 riders remaining in the front group. It looks like it might now down to 5. It's elimination. They keep falling off the back. Bree Vine is at the front. She's been so consistent. No, we still have the 6. The drafting has been used to get back on. The right at the back looked like they might have just about been cooked, but they've managed to hang in there. Bree Vine, 2 second-place finishes. She'd be a deserving winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell she's working hard. She's been working really well on her consistency, just at the moment dropping towards the little back of the pack, but still hanging in there strong. It's going to be an absolute fight to the finish with these top 6. What have we got? 6 in the group at the moment. As she starts to move towards the front of the pack, she knows the finish line is in sight. She's trying to break away from these girls, but they will not let her free.
And De Jong is also in the mix here. The winner from last week, if she can win this week, depending on where Bree Vine finishes, that could be enough to move the young Dutch woman to the top of the overall standings. At the moment, it's Bree Vine who leads the series on 36 points. De Jong is 11 behind her on 25 points. It's 25 points for the win. They're about to go underneath the kites, the famous 1 kilometre marker. 6 in with a chance for victory.
They'll be giving it every little last bit they've got left in their legs at the moment. Everything's hurting, everything's screaming, as we've got the pack has just caught them back now. So it's all on the table now. It's anyone's game.
Phenomenal. A huge group has emerged. This is turning in to a sprint finish consisting of 26 riders in this group, as that big peloton has made contact with just on 800 metres remaining. Bree Vine is still in with a chance. Can she convert 2 second-place finishes into a win? It is a real jostle for position. This is a long-range sprint. Somebody is already using the drafting. The power is boosting. Lots of moves as they make their way up towards the fronts. Inside the last few hundred metres, this is a big burst of speed off the fronts, and the confetti has exploded. This is a huge move with just on 300 metres to go. You can still be caught. Still a long way to go. Bree Vine is chasing. She could get a hat-trick of third-place finishes. Is it De Jong who has gone to make it 2 wins in a row? We will wait for confirmation. It is a clear win. It looks like Vine again in second position. So that's 3 races in a row where she's finished in second place. At the very least, she still leads the series.
I think she will be kicking herself a little bit. She really was at the, in the best position towards the end. They just got chased down by the peloton right at those very last minute. But as you saw, we spoke about all night, being able to hang on to those aero power-ups and just being able to use them really when they counted in those last dying 100 meters.
If you had to give a most aggressive award, I'm leaning towards Brie Vine.
Oh, 100%. I mean, she was there the entire race. She was consistent, as we've spoken about, the entire time, and just being able to dig in when the peloton caught her was pretty impressive.
I'm looking at the Zwift Power website at the moment, and it's showing Antoinette de Jong, last week's winner, going across the line in first position, with Brie Vine in second place, followed then by Katie Banerjee. Next in line was Nicole Frayne, or is that Brie Wilson in third position, I should say. So de Jong followed by Brie Vine, then Brie Wilson. We will wait for confirmation, though. That one of my favourite words going through this is provisional. So that's the provisional result. We will wait for confirmation. But what I liked about that race was lap one up the hill, I thought, this is a race amongst 11 riders. It's done. And then the next time over the top, I thought it was done, and the group came back. Confirmation, de Jong makes it 2 in a row. Brie Vine, for the third week running, gets second place. Brie Wilson in third position. It was then Chelsea Holmes in fourth. Zhang Cindy in fifth place. Brie Playal was in sixth position. So it looked like the race was going to blow up, but they kept fighting their way back.
Yeah, a very strategic race and a really good opportunity for the riders to get that second chance when the peloton broke away and for them to come back on that second lap. So really, it was a really entertaining race to watch.
I love the way that it looked as if it was over, and a little bit like the Rafael Nadal style of tennis, make them play one more shot. The others just got another ball back into play.
Yeah, that's right. And for Brie Vine to be able, she thought she had it, maybe she thought she had it in the bag right towards the end. The peloton caught up to them, and for her to be able to dig in and to hang on towards the end, it's very impressive riding.
I haven't done an official race on Zwift, but I have participated in all 4 stages of the Tour for All. When I did the one that went up Alpe to Zwift, it was just isolated suffering as I made way up that climb. But the other ones, when it's come down to doing a bit of a sprint for the finish line for 47th position, it is hard to get the timing right.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done the SRAM Send It Series myself. And it's incredibly difficult because obviously everyone at the start goes off like a bull at a gate, and you are trying to hang on for everything you've got. So as the amateur I am, you absolutely blow yourself up, and then you can't do any more. And then you're trying to recover and rest, and then obviously you're trying to hang on towards the end. So so much more is involved in these races than just riding away. And obviously, it's all about the strategy and all about getting your timing exactly perfect.
And here's an example, though, again, in terms of the power that we spoke about earlier. So Antoinette de Jong, she wins with an average power output of 4.6 watts per kilo. Brie Vine was then in second position, but in third place, Brie Wilson, she was punching out 4.9 watts per kilo. And I can only put that down to the fact that she was in the initial breakaway on lap 1, so she spent a lot of energy then trying to force that one to stay away. And then the second breakaway, she spent a lot of energy trying to chase. So again, it proves the importance of being in the right place, the right time, and using your energy wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we saw right at the very end there, all of the girls using their aero power-ups, which is what we sort of expected, hanging on to them, using them at the perfect time to be able to give you that boost right at the very end in order to sort of get that little breakaway that you might have needed. Who we didn't see feature in the sort of top numbers who we really thought was going to feature was Justine Barrow. Interesting to see what happened with her. We spoke about her thinking that this was really going to suit her, being a climber. She enjoys that. That's where she really relishes. So the fact that she hasn't featured in the top 10 in this race is probably quite surprising, and be interesting to see why her race didn't pan out the way she probably had anticipated.
A strong result in 7th position for Emily Watts, racing with me. She's a rider that she's been a good triathlete as well herself, and stepping out of the junior ranks. But there's something on this result sheet that is just jumping off at me at the moment that I've never seen before. 3 Bries inside the top 10.
Maybe it was something about the name tonight. And we've also got a few different countries represented as well. So that's pretty cool to see so many different nationalities represented in the top 10.
Yeah, that's great. We've got two Dutch riders inside the top 10. We've got a rider from China, plenty of Australians, obviously, given the time zone, and it's the SRAM Send It Series generating out of Australia. And then we saw a rider from Israel, really active. We saw an American up towards the front. It has been fantastic. What was your highlight from the race?
Oh, look, I definitely think that the ending was the highlight. I mean, that probably speaks for itself, but to see how the peloton really chased down that front group of 6 girls, and then how it separated towards the end, I think that was pretty cool to watch.
And the timing of that sprint from De Jong was perfect. As we take a look at the replay, she just waited patiently. She spent a fair bit of time sitting near the front, but not on the front this week, by comparison to what she did last week, where she was super aggressive and she won solo. So she's shown us this time around that it doesn't really matter what the format is. She can work out a way to win. So that now puts her up into 2nd position in the series overall, and she's closed the gap significantly on the series leader, Brie Vine. Brie Vine still leads, 3 second-place finishes. Do you get enough second-place finishes that you can trade one in for a victory? Not quite.
She'll be really wanting to get that 1st place. You know how competitive these girls are. Coming 2nd 3 weeks in a row, she'll be frustrated by that, I'm sure, and be really wanting to make sure that next week she can go one better.
Oh, the men's race is kicking off in just 10 minutes. What do you think they take from this race if they've been paying much attention? We know Jay Vine's been watching.
Well, we'd absolutely know that he's been watching, and I'm sure that he would have been sussing out very closely exactly how that race was unfolding. I'm sure they would have been looking really closely towards how the climb was used, and then just how those girls really used those power-ups towards the end. I mean, obviously, it really showed how important it was to get that timing just perfect in order to have that sprint towards the finish.
And what about for you? What's on the agenda tomorrow to recover from Alp to Zwift today?
Tomorrow is run day, so day off the bike and onto the run for tomorrow.
Do you run out? Will you run outside or will you run on Zwift?
Well, I have been running a lot on Zwift actually, but tomorrow is an outside run. But yes, I've been on the Zwift running, and that's actually been really cool to just focus on some drills and set some different paces, and I've been enjoying that a lot. Yeah.
I saw a good conversation on social media. Somebody said they'd done all 4 stages of the Tour for All, and then somebody else responded. They said, "No, you haven't. You've only done the bike ones," because that person had done the bike and the run ones.
There you go.
It was pretty impressive. Well, It's been sensational having you on the broadcast with me. I assume you're going to be back for the next one?
I assume so. If you'll have me back, I'll be back.
I'll definitely have you back, and we'll catch up on Saturday for the National Road Series, the next round in that. We're up to round 3.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Matt.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Rhianna Crean, who'll be joining me throughout the SRAM Send It Series and for the National Road Series, best known for her work in the supercars and now for riding up to Zwift, and she is a regular on this platform. Till next week, Rhianna. See you later.
Thank you. See ya.
Welcome back to the SRAM Send It Series, race number 3. Matthew Keenan with you. This is the 3rd of 8 races. We've just seen the women's race be taken out by Antoinette de Jong, the Dutch woman, for the 2nd week in a row, as Brie Vine has made it 3 from 3 in terms of 2nd place finishes, and she is the leader of the series overall.
What a fantastic race it was. I just watched the whole women's race, saw that unfold, and surprisingly, a few of the quicker riders making it to the finish, so probably an interesting start for tonight. But we can see that the riders have got into the pens quite early. We're still around about 7 minutes away, and almost 300 riders are already on the start line. Positioning will be crucial out of the start gate, as we now see it tick over to 5.5 minutes before the start. That's actually going to be quite interesting to see how that plays a role in particularly the first ascent up the leg snapper.
Huge numbers for the women's race, likewise for the men's race. What do you think the men will take out of the women's race tactically in terms of the moves that we saw on the climb?
Well, for mine, the big players for the stage, or the round, should I say, they're probably already got their plans sorted. They've raced on this circuit quite a lot. It was used a lot in last year's Chop series as well. And we also did a round of the SRAM Send It Series last year on this circuit. So they do know it well enough. The thing is that rarely would they have raced in a group this big. So if you're logging on late or you've had some sort of form of interruption to your start program this afternoon, should I say, this could be a big hindrance to you. But I expect them to see what the women's race did. There was a group come back towards the finish. I don't see that happening in the men's race.
I was really impressed with the fact that second group, it was a case of no retreat, no surrender. They fought their way back into contention, and there was still a chance that one of those riders from that second group could have won the sprint finish.
Oh, for sure, except for the fact that they did have to put out a lot of power, and that's the difficult thing. You come over the top of the leg snapper, you've got about 4 kilometres to go, 3.5 should I say, and then you've got to get back to that front group and then produce a good sprint. We'll get to power-ups later on, but that's going to be an important factor in today's race.
It will be. We're inside 5 minutes away before we make a start for round number 3 in the SRAM Send It Series for the men's. Last week, the race was taken out by Ollie Jones in impressive fashion. He leads the series overall. Jay Vine is in second place. His wife, Bree Vine, leads the women's series. She's had 3 second-place finishes so far. Let's now take a look, Pat, at some of the riders to watch tonight, starting with Jay Vine. He's a guy who really knows how to manage his efforts in this format. We know he can win.
Oh, yes, certainly. Jay Vine, he's got to be one of the out-and-out favourites today. He was so fantastic in the NRS race as well last week. And he was honest about his performance too. He got caught on the line, but he'll be strong tonight, and he's done well on this circuit before. I think recently finishing second to Nick White in one of the Chop Series races, so he'll be really strong. From Guernsey, we've got Aidan Sinclair. He's been really strong as well. And one of the young riders that's sort of stood up for Oliver's Real Foods, and they have a strong team probably starting tonight, but going into Saturday's National Road Series, they'll be very, very strong as well. Jeffrey Creel, well, for those that race on Zwift, they'll know that he is one of the big hitters. And together with his countryman, Gary Mueller, they will really be 2 of the power players tonight. Mark O'Brien, well, he's going to have to split it up on the leg snapper, but he's got the young riders like Pat Eddy and Sam Eddy also in his team, so maybe they can fire up a big sprint finish. How's it going to unfold? Well, I feel like on this climb, Matt, that it doesn't really suit the perfect climbers. Your types like Mark O'Brien will go well on this course, but it's really last week's winner, Ollie Jones. He's going to be really strong again. He loves this course, and he's fired up to go for another win. Jay Vine, we spoke about him. He's obviously one of the favourites too. And some power sprinters like Nick White, his teammate also Ben Hill. They're going to be really hard riders to look past on tonight's course.
And we've got the team out of New Zealand with the old and new, the team that is being led as the captain by Greg Henderson. It also includes Freddie Ovett.
Yeah, well, Freddie Ovett, he's very strong on this course. And I think you were telling me earlier, he did win the recent stage around here on Zwift, so he knows the course well. And he's got really good form at the moment. I think probably a little bit of a silver lining that coronavirus has allowed us to spend so much time on the indoors. It's really led to him being in very good condition. And so it's very hard to leave him out of the play tonight. And I think that he'll be definitely a key player.
Last week, a recap on last week, Ollie Jones, who you mentioned, he was brilliant. Does he ride the same style of race this week? Because last week was really aggressive. Or does he try to be more conservative?
Well, as we saw earlier in the women's race, I spoke to you before we went on camera, but you tend to go early in the sprint on this course, and I don't know why it is. There are the 100-metre increment markers on the boards on the side of the road, but they opened up the sprint about 350 metres to go. If they do that tonight, Ollie Jones wins again.
Power-ups could be all important. Take us through them quickly.
I think, out of all the courses, this is the one where power-ups play the biggest key. On your first ascent of the leg snapper, you really want a lightweight power-up, reducing your weight by 9.5 kilograms for 15 seconds, and that's going to be nearly enough to get you up that climb. The aero power-up, it's going to be the decision maker for who wins tonight's race. Makes you more aerodynamic for 15 seconds, and I can see the person that executes that best towards the end coming out tonight's victor. The draft,
we saw last week, Tom Benton and Nick White, they were just a little bit late using their power-ups, and that enabled Ollie Jones to hold on and take the win. We're not too far away from getting started. Let's head down to the pens. Not too far away. In fact, down to the final 5 seconds. Perfect timing. Pat Shaw, race number 3 in the SRAM Send It Series, has sent it out onto the course around Innsbruckring. 2 laps, 18 kilometres. It's on right from the very start.
And as we expected, that's why positioning is vital. And for those riders that signed into the pen early, they're going to get maximum advantage for that. So we'll wait for a few leaderboards to come up, but we can already see high wattage, 6, 7, 8 watts per kilo to make it to the front. It's Lewis again, the under-16 rider. He was prevalent last week. He made it to the last about 4 kilometres in the front group with only 30 riders left. So it's a fantastic effort by him. Our sound crew have been putting together a few of the playlists as well. Last week we had Peter Mullins, and right up there at the front of the race is this week's Spotify playlist for the SRAM Send It Series, and that's Nick Bensley. I tell you what, he's got some fine hits in there too, Matt Keenan. Time to Pretend from MGMT, one of my favourites actually.
So you're happy with his playlist? Will it be getting a run the next time you're on the home trainer?
Oh, no, I don't think the whole playlist that he's put aside, but certainly a little bits here and there. It's funny, actually, when I did a lot of my hardest training on the smart trainers, I didn't always pick the same type of music. Sometimes I get on the trainer and want to hear the real intensity of the dance or techno music just to get you up and going. But other days, particularly after I'd had some really tough weeks on the bike and were fatigued, sometimes the quieter music was something that actually soothed me and made me train through the difficult, painful times. So I was a little bit different. I used to chop and change it a fair bit, and I actually would really enjoy foreign music, so French and Italian music, whilst training.
And a couple of youngsters that you spoke about. As you were talking about the music you were listening to, I was paying very close attention to the names at the front. And Jack Carswell, once again, is at the front, the young Kiwi, who finished inside the top 10 last week. And so too, the not-so-young. Let's call him the more experienced, Greg Henderson, formerly of the Lotto Soudal team, the great lead-out man for Andre Greipel. He is also up near the front.
Yes, along with a lot of the National Road Series riders that are using this as a launch pad into the weekend's racing. And I think it's a great time to talk about the youth that is participating in the SRAM Send It Series in both the women's and men's. I didn't have a chance to sign in early enough to check out the numbers in the women's race, but in the men's event we're watching now, we've got 18 juniors. That means riders under the age of 18 years of age are competing tonight, and we have a similar amount in the under 23 category. I think that's really significant. It's why I think that both these series and the real life series can correlate going into the future. It just gives that exposure for these young riders against the premium product of athlete that we have in the country, and it gives them a good measuring stick as we're seeing numbers from Andrew Thompson from the Nero Continental outfit, or NCC. It's important that these young riders get this leverage and also this measuring stick, Matt.
And look at the heart rate already of Andrew Thompson. It is approaching the 200 mark. It's up at 191. That is a huge heart rate. And to be able to get your heart rate up high, it's important to be fresh. And Greg Henderson sent me a message earlier on. He's had a really good freshening up strategy for this event. He forgot to ride his bike for the last 5 days.
Well, he's a busy man, but he didn't need too much riding recently to also show that he's still got some good stuff in the tank. And the old and new, well, maybe they can get it done tonight with Freddie Ovett on this course. It's one that suits him and one that in which he will enjoy quite a lot. But after the first ascent of the leg snapper, we should have a good idea of who's got the legs and who doesn't. Right up there at the moment, still got some pretty big names. Alistair Christie-Johnson, winner of Stage 2 of the National Road Series at the New York City After Party KOM finish, and that was a brilliant finish too. Right up there as well, Freddie Ovett. You spoke about Jack Carswell as well. We just saw Liam White pop in there, and also one of our pre-race favourites, Mark O'Brien. So right up there at the top. But one that interests me, sitting about 20th at the moment, Alex Lack. He's been a really impressive exposed rider in this format, bringing more to our attention. He rides for the GPM Stools team, but he has a great mountain bike pedigree background, and that seems to transfer really well to the Zwift format.
And I'm sure you would have noted the name Spratt up near the front. And it is the brother of Amanda Spratt, Nick Spratt. He is in contention. He really lost the key part of what potentially could have been an international career for Nick Spratt because of Lyme's disease in his early 20s. But he's part of the reason that Amanda Spratt is so good, because they were racing consistently for the Spratt Cup. And it's great to see Nick in contention in this race. He's got a couple of kids. He works full-time as a carpenter, and he still has the horsepower to be in contention at the front of race number 3 in the SRAM Send It Series.
This is the part of the course, Matt, where you really got to get into that front positions, because we're going to come around the corner shortly and we'll take our first ascent of the leg snapper. Let's see if we see some of these lightweight power-ups. They reduce your weight by 9.5 kilograms for 15 seconds, and that's really going to be a big assist. We see Dalton Stratton right now, one of the under-19 riders, pushing nearly 400 watts at the moment, around that 5 to 6 watts per kilo. He's a new addition to the Aero team, which is one of the latest additions to Zwift live racing teams, one of the pro teams on Zwift. So he's definitely keeps wanting to put his best foot forward. Ollie Jones is highlighted in the pack and definitely one of the favourites tonight.
He is. He's showing himself up towards the front. He knows the importance of good positioning. We saw the women's race split on the first lap up this climb. It did again on the second lap, but then it all came back together just at the very last moment. Some power-ups now being used, Pat.
Yes, and this is where we spoke about this in the pre-race talk, and these power-ups are important. Ollie Jones obviously is used to his power-up along the flat section, and he's probably disposed that, as we see him on the screen actually. It's 800 watts, mind you, 10 watts per kilo. But look at his cadence. That's one thing everyone can learn off Ollie Jones. Yes, he produces high power, but he produces high power at a high revs per minute as well. And yes, that obviously goes towards a higher heart rate, but it certainly also allows him to produce it more often in a short period of time. So it goes over the top, and we now look to see what the formation of the groups will be, because that was a very, very hard ascent on the first time.
It was. They really opened up the throttle. The race has been split up somewhat, but not a massive gap appearing. So it looks like it won't be enough to really completely blow this race apart, as riders are gradually working their way back onto the wheel. But Freddie Ovett, he is in this group. He's one of the teammates of Greg Henderson. And I can assure you, Pat Shaw, Greg Henderson is really confident about the prospects of Freddie Ovett being able to win on this course.
Well, he's certainly in the right position. And as I said, he's had success on this course before. So that is a really important factor. However, going solo, particularly on the last time, is difficult, because this long downhill section and then a false flat, which is difficult to stay away solo. So it will be really interesting to see how it forms next time around. But certainly next lap, as you go into the finish banner, you really want to pick up that aero power up for the finish. Jay Vine now in picture. He's been so strong in the series already, but also in the National Road Series, where he leads that series overall. Just 161 beats per minute, Matt. I think he's handling tonight's conditions quite well.
I get the impression he's saving himself for a big move later on. He looks really comfortable. There's no need for him to completely open up the throttle. He currently sits in second position in the series. He's 8 points behind Ollie Jones. Graham Frisley is in third position. He's on 27 points, which puts him at 16 points behind the series leader. Hasn't Graham Frisley been good in this series?
really been one of the highlights, in fact, and he's really shown that he's more capable than just being a flat sprinter now, and that's a really positive thing to see, particularly from our perspective. We're sort of like mini scouts as commentators, so we get to see these riders develop, and it certainly is quite a joy to see him taking those steps, because they're the ones that are going to allow him to go further in the sport. Freddie Ovett, he looks pretty comfortable too at 170 beats per minute. And again, look at that revs per minute. We see this often with our strongest athletes, that higher revs per minute that allows them to be more efficient, and certainly towards the end, it will allow them to have the legs to go all the way.
Strategically, Pat, a lot of power-ups being used at this point with the drafting power-up, trying to recuperate.
Yeah, I also see in there an aero power-up, a bit confused with that use of that power-up. But the drafting power-up, this is the time to use it in the pack. You're going to have to produce a fair amount, 50% less, 50% more effective is the draft when you have the draft power-up. So if you take that into account, you're looking at around a 45% reduction overall by getting in the draft. And in this position right now, along the flat, you're going to get most reward. So that's very smart use of it.
And what about Mark O'Brien here? We're seeing his numbers. We're seeing power, cadence, speed. No heart rate being showed by Mark O'Brien. Strategic decision perhaps from Marco.
Well, unfortunately for Mark, regardless of his decision tonight to show or not show his heart rate, if he does finish, he probably won't get a result on Zwift Power, because unless you have your heart rate showing in particularly the elite events, but in most events, you will not show up on the Zwift Power, because they use that as one of the parameters to measure the legitimacy of your ride. So people at home that are going, oh, well, you could just put your weight in at 30 kilograms. Well, that would be marked as an outlier by Zwift Power, and any change of your weight or heart rate variances are highlighted at the end of the event and can be seen on Zwift Power. But Mark O'Brien looks like he's taking a bit of a surge for it and going early, Matt Keenan.
Kirschmere it is who's made a big attack as well, along with Mark O'Brien. That's 1 lap down, 1 lap to go. As we go inside with Jeffrey Creel, a rider that you spoke about as one to watch.
Yeah, well, Jeffrey is on our live cam as well, part of the Aussie Hump Day riding team. And as we always say, the Hump Day ride on a Wednesday night, it's the biggest one for the socials. Also the after party, not so social. But check it out on 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night. Yeah, Jeffrey Creel, he's one of the big hitters on the Zwift platform and has been for many years now. He's got a lot of experience, but he also has been a great mentor to a lot of the upcoming younger riders as well. As now we start to head to the business end, Matt Keenan, seems strange. We've been racing for 11 minutes and 45 seconds. We've covered nearly 10 kilometres, mind you, and we have just 8 kilometres remaining.
Phenomenal. The rider that I'm looking for that I can't find this week is Gary Mueller, who last week, the South African, he was fantastic, but he did send me a message to say that he was in a bit of a hurry last week and probably spent a little bit too much time at the front, as his wife was 40 weeks and 4 days pregnant, and our little boy arrived on Wednesday the 20th. Congratulations to the Mueller family now. Fantastic news. And perhaps it was that prospect of his wife giving birth that had him so strong last week. And this week, maybe he just hasn't had enough sleep.
Yeah, certainly is something you don't want to miss. So, yes, and we thank him for his live vision last week too. So, big shout out to them and congratulations on the arrival. And we wish both Mum and Bub all the best and hope that they're well. On the front, it is Leicester at the moment. Right up there, Cameron Roberts. We spoke nothing about him last year's winner of the series overall, but he certainly is going to put out a big race tonight. This course suits him, as we see Mueller now, and just sitting 300 watts, but at 181 beats per minute. Well, something of a discrepancy there, but 181 beats per minute certainly shows that he is finding the climb a bit tough tonight.
But Pat, he's in the group, and we saw in the women's race, there was a group drop and they came back, and Gary Mueller finished really strongly last week. He comes predominantly from a triathlon background. He actually competed in the Ironman in Cairns last year, where he finished in 20th position overall, 3rd in his age group, which qualified him to do Kona, to do the Hawaiian Ironman. So we know that the distance isn't going to be a problem. In fact, by the time this is finished, he's just warmed up and he'll go and do his real training.
Well, He's a strong athlete, but I don't know. I just don't think you can get dropped one lap here if you're not in this group the second time over. I don't know how many will make their way back. It has been a absolutely boiling pace up front. Mark O'Brien setting the pace again. Carswell, the young Kiwi, right up there as also. But Mark O'Brien, and I think this is a smart move by O'Brien, force the pace before the climb. The climb's only 550 metres in length of pure climbing. It's not enough for a rider like Mark to really split the group. He has to go longer and force the hand of the other riders. But right up in the middle of that front group is Ollie Jones and also Ben Hill. Good to see my man Jesse Norton up there as well, Matt Keenan. That's a good sign for him, one of the under-19 athletes.
You could have picked him out if he was buried underneath the rest of the peloton in 73rd position. Also, still in this group, there's still 60 riders in this main group, and I've just spotted the name of Sam Welsford in this group.
Yeah, saw Sam in there earlier, and he's looking quite good, but he's really going to have a cracker of a climb. You've got to be within about 10 seconds for mine over the top. Freddie Ovett is up there as well. Greg Henderson in a good position to aid him over the top of the climb. But Mark O'Brien, I really love this move, and I've got to give him all the shout-outs possible. So in the chat, make sure you give him a bit of kudos too. He loves reading it, don't you mind that.
Yeah, there's Welsford now. We just spoke about Sam Welsford, multiple world champion on the track. He has been down towards the back. He is now up at the front. And Pat, if Welsford can survive the climb, he has as much horsepower, if not more, than anybody else in this group, surely.
Oh, well, that's undisputed. There's no point arguing it, and I wouldn't even try. It'll be more about how difficult this climb is, and I can see Ollie Jones going pretty hard on this climb, and it'll be important to see the makeup of that front group of riders, probably of 8 to 12 riders left over the top, and see how they work together. But it's great to see a bit different of a mix in this race tonight. Alex Slack up there again, sitting in about 8th to 10th position. He's a really exciting rider on the road now, and after his mountain bike background, I think he's one of the riders to really watch this year.
Yep, and here comes Mark O'Brien, right on cue, base of the climb. O'Brien moves to the front. 4.5 kilometres to go. Race number 3 in the SRAM Send It Series, which is being led by the Kiwi Ollie Jones of Oliver's Real Food Racing, and this race is about to get real. It's crunch time, and Jones is on the front.
Yeah, well, Ollie Jones wants to really push the power here. This isn't really him pushing the power just yet. I'd expect to see him on the leg snapper go 700-800 watts. So that's double the work rate that he's currently providing. But still, again, we see that his revs per minute is quite high. He's got some room to move in his heart rate. Now he stands on the pedals. That means he's getting ready to really launch a nice attack up here. 10 watts per kilo now, and he starts to really surge on it, trying to keep his core in good motion so he can hold good power. But he can see there's a fair few players interested in coming along tonight.
And Kieran Lewis from Zwift himself, from the headquarters in Melbourne, is amongst them. He's on the charge. He's right at the front. This is fantastic riding by Lewis. Nick Bensley, our man from the Spotify playlist, is also up towards the front. He's riding well. Jones is marking these moves. Jay Vine is in contention. They go across the top, and everybody has made an all-out effort sprinting across the top to stay in contact.
Yeah, they have, but who's got the legs now to surge on the descent? This is where if you back it off, everyone's going to get a chance to freshen up, and it's Nick White from the Aero Racing team, also a representative of Bridge Lane in the real-life racing. He goes to the front. Bensley, the Spotify man this week for the SRAM Send It Series, he goes to the front as well. Mark O'Brien, these are common names to see surging to the front.
Yeah, they're the names that we see at the front, whether it is Real World Racing or Zwift Racing. But what is real is the pain, and the pain for Jay Vine at 500 watts on the way down, 60 kilometres per hour, flying.
Yeah, flying indeed, and it's going to be the rider that can get to the finish and still produce a potent sprint. The aero power-up's going to be a major player, and it can be one that upsets the apple cart because you don't necessarily have to be a great sprinter to have the aero power-up assist you to take you to victory. But remember, you don't have to be in this front group tonight or any of the weeks of the SRAM Send It Series. Just be a participant for all 8 weeks and you can go into the chance to win a SRAM Axis group set, a SRAM Axis Force group set, as well as the new 303S Zip wheel set with a lifetime guarantee. I think they're a great wheel set to go. And as I said last week, I've got mine on order. They're coming next month.
And this is O'Brien coming to the front, just on 2 kilometres to go. Mark O'Brien has been the most aggressive throughout the race today. There's no question we've seen a lot of the name O'Brien. There's the 2 kilometre arch. The next arch will be red. The following one will have rainbow bands on the ground. That is the finish line.
Looking at Mark O'Brien, but let's remember after that arch, the green arch at 2 kilometres to go back there for the sprint, they pick up a new power-up. So those riders that used the Featherlight or lightweight power-up on the climb, they will now receive a new power-up. Now, if that's an aero power-up, bingo, we're ready to play for the big prizes tonight. If it's a draft boost or if it's the invisibility, well, maybe we're looking for a long-range attack. The front 3, Cutler, O'Brien and Ollie Jones, all very strong riders, and they've got a small gap.
And Jones is going early. He's applying plenty of pressure at the front. It's a tiny gap. It is 1 second to Nick Bensley, who's got the tunes going. Behind him is Jay Vine. It's then Shannon. Lewis is still in contention. He's riding well. So too is Dowdle. 1 kilometre remaining, Pat.
Yes, it's the Rouge, Flamme Rouge, and it pops up just on time. And here we go. Tim Cutler, Ollie Jones, Mark O'Brien. Then it's Nick Bensley. Behind him, Jay Vine, Alex Lack. We've already spoken about him. Kieran Lewis, Greg Henderson's right up there. It's not for Ovett tonight. Maybe it's for the sprinter. So it's not for new, it's for old.
It is.
Welsford
is in amongst it. Welsford also coming forward. Jones towards the front. He's got himself in the position, ready to pounce, ready to sprint. It's Lack who's at the head of the race from GPM. It was his teammate, Roberts, who won 1 year ago. They're being swept up. Big move coming from behind. Henderson taking a flyer, making his way towards the front. It's Jones who opens up. Henderson, more now with the gap. This is more. It's the aero by name and aero by nature for the team, but the whole group is breathing down his neck. Ovett is getting close. It's Labcock. Benton it is that's now bursting through to the front. He got the timing right this week. Benton takes the win.
What a ride, and what a great rider. I really enjoy watching him in the real-life racing. He just got the timing wrong last week, but he's come back for some redemption this week, and he's got it right on the line. He timed it to perfection. Chris Ball in second. Kirkmar, he is very strong, and he's shown that again tonight. Freddie Ovett, well, I was wrong. He finished in 4th for a good sprint. Alistair Christie-Johnson up there as well in 5th. Alex West, Canyon Racing, 6th. Jack Lakovic for XGT. Jay Vine showing that he's still strong even on the flatter courses. Dylan Hopkins, a new one up there. Matt Keenan, we're great to see him. And our man from Zwift itself, HQ, Kieran Lewis. What a great performance.
And what's intriguing was you look at the list, look at the watts per kilo. Dylan Hopkins in 9th position has averaged 5.8 watts per kilo. And he's finished in 9th place. The winner, Tom Benton, 5.3. So half a kilo less, well, half a watt less in terms of watts per kilo for the race. So he's used his energy really smartly today, Tom Benton.
He has indeed, and potentially he was one of the riders that had the draft boost power-up on the flat section of the course, and that was a huge advantage, particularly after that strong ascent the first time around, as we can continue in the background to see riders finishing. What I can say, Matt, is I've been reviewing the numbers on this series and the National Road Series as I have several athletes competing, and the numbers are phenomenal. They really are strong across the board, and riders are setting new FTPs in each and every week. So it'll be interesting to see these numbers again today. But generally speaking, we're seeing around 5.3 to 5.5 watts is the requirement to take victory in one of these races.
Which is a lot. Let's take a look at the replay and timing to perfection by Tom Benton. There was so much activity in the last few hundred metres, Pat, I could barely keep up with who was at the front.
Oh, of course. And it was always going to come down to who used the power-up at the right time. Now, last week, Tom Benton, his power-up ran out just before the line. This week, watch it expire as he comes across the line. It was a perfect time. But have a look at all these power-ups. A few drafties in there, but major players in today's race all had aero power-ups.
So for Tom Benton, that's going to move him further up the overall standing. At the start of today, he was in 4th position on 19 points. He collects 25 today. Not quite enough, I don't think, to move him into the lead, but he is getting close. Again, points collected by Ollie Jones and Jay Vine. We're 3 races down, 5 races to go. The real pattern is emerging with the same names each week, Pat.
And look, in series, we always see that, don't we, Matt? It doesn't matter whether it's a climber, a sprinter, or more of a time trialist. We see once you're in the leaderboard and you're picking up consistent points, for some reason, you keep forcing yourself in the top 10. I mean, how often in a Tour de France stage do we see the likes of Esteban Chavez or Chris Froome in the top 20? Where really, they shouldn't be there. But they don't want to lose time, and it's the same in these series. It's all about picking up consistent points.
Let's now take a look back at the women's results. This was another thrilling race. It was so tight all the way down to the finish line, and it was Brie Vine again in second place for the 3rd week running. But importantly, for the 2nd week in a row, Antoinette de Jong has taken the win, and it was Brie Wilson in 3rd place. Again, Pat, a pattern appearing, de Jong and Vine looking to be the 2 to beat overall.
Yes, certainly, and Brie Wilson right up there as well. So great to see some strong riders really pushing each other all the way. Tonight was a different race, though, and I think that a lot of the riders can be very happy. They gave themselves a real honest chance at taking the victory. Antoinette de Jong, what she did tonight was showed us her versatility. But Brie Vine, she was ultra aggressive, and potentially she'll just tweak that a little bit over the coming weeks. But she's certainly picking up, as we spoke about, a lot of...
Yeah, so in terms of other results, in terms of not necessarily results, but off the result sheet, looking for some highlights from the race. In the men's race, my highlight outside of the top 5 on the result sheet was Mark O'Brien. I thought that was a fantastic performance by him.
Oh, and a perfect breakaway move as well. He tried to stretch the race out. Mark O'Brien's a very experienced rider, and he understands that a 500-metre climb isn't going to be enough to split the best in the business. And so that's an important thing for him to do. So I agree. His ride was great. But what I really enjoyed was seeing the likes of Dalton Stratton up there for under-19s towards the end, and also to see right on the line Tom Benton get his win after last week's second.
So let's take a look back at what was an incredible race with Tom Benton taking out the win, a guy who last week was super close, but this time he got it done. It was a really aggressive race, and smartly, Pat, he was really conservative in the climbs, and in the women's race, it was de Jong who was conservative as well. Different to the way she raced last week. She waited for that final moment to pounce, and she got the better of Brie Vine. And then in the men's race, it was Tom Benton with a tight finish.
The amazing thing in the women's race is look how many draft boosts, not so many aero boosts. So utilisation of those is phenomenal. But this is the men's finish, and we see Tom Benton. He just expired there 15 metres from the line, but he had a big enough gap. And then the rest of the rides really closed up tight in that top 10. But what I really loved about the use of the power-ups by Antoinette de Jong, she didn't have an aero power-up, so she went long, and then she pressed the draft boost. Doesn't really assist too much when you're not on the wheel, but she got the win anyway.
Yeah, what I liked about the use of the power-ups today is how effective they were. And the strategy that you spoke about beforehand was deployed brilliantly by Tom Benton, and I love the way it expired, maybe with 10 metres to go to the finish line. You couldn't do it any better.
No, but it's also there's some sort of sensation to stop pedalling. I don't know whether it's like they're in the real life, you know, you're going to the line, you think, they're not going to get me. But when you stop in Zwift, you literally stop. So Tom Benton definitely pedalled it all the way to the line. And that's one of the secrets to winning these Zwift races. Pedal all the way to the line. It's something we tell juniors all the time, Matt Keenan. Don't stop pedaling until you finish. Well, we're giving the same information to anyone racing on Zwift. Don't stop pedaling until you hit the line.
We've seen some of the greats of the sport celebrate a little bit too early, and then somebody else slip by, and take the victory. What I've also enjoyed about the coverage throughout the first 3 rounds of the SRAM Send It Series, Pat, has been the interaction via Facebook and the Zwift live coverage and seeing your comments. We haven't been able to get to a whole lot of them tonight because there's been so much happening and the race was short, but keep sending in the comments. We love it and we like seeing who you're sending it for in terms of your support. Pat, it's one of the great things about this format.
Oh, for certain, and we love seeing any feedback at all. But what the engagement side of Zwift is what's so fantastic, and I always love that community aspect of it. We're all back here again on Saturday, Matt Keenan, and you'll be joined again for the women's race by Rihanna. But we'll be also commenting on the men's race as well. So it's round 3. It gets really serious now because the points start to really accumulate.
They do. I'm looking forward to Saturday, Pat. I'm also looking forward to next Tuesday for round number 4 in the SRAM Send It Series. Pat, thanks for another great call. Been brilliant racing today. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Congratulations to Tom for taking out the win in the men's race and to Antoinette de Jong for taking out the win in the women's race. Until next week, goodbye.